And I'm biased. I'm a landlord. I admit it. But it's also, I feel like we can kind of be used as scapegoats. And when you say landlords, it's all one group. And that's my main issue with a law like that is there's no shades of gray. It's either you're part of the greedy landlords or you're a renter. And when in reality, you have giant companies who own hundreds and hundreds of doors here in Los Angeles. And then you have mom and pops who I just don't feel should be subject to the same rules as a giant corporation.
Welcome to the Wild West Real Estate Podcast. And now, here's your host, Mark Hinteman. Today's guest is a real estate investor, Family Guy writer, voice actor, drummer, former MTV VJ, host of MTV's Total Request Live, primetime DJ on 104 FM in Los Angeles. He's a repeat guest. I'd like to welcome my first Family Guy coworker to appear on this show, Damien Fahey.
Hey, that's a nice intro. Thank you.
That was a mouthful.
Oh, I didn't tell you to say all that.
I love it. I love how many things you have, and you're a drummer.
I love staying busy. I really do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. This is your repeat guest, and got to follow up on your last time we spoke. You had just bought a triplex. Mm-hmm. And you had some jitters. You were a little nervous, but how's it going? Where are you now?
So I'm about almost 2 years in now to owning my triplex here in Echo Park and in Los Angeles. And boy, how's it going? You get into this, I got into this going and you sort of think, oh, this is going to solve all my problems. And this is going to be the ticket to, financial independence, and I'll be stress-free once I have this because the mortgage will be being paid for and everything. And there are definitely, for the most part, it is that way, but there have definitely been challenges. And I think last time I was on this show, I had heard from many other real estate podcasts that your first property is all about learning and getting an education about multifamily investing, and especially when you're the landlord, so you get an education not only in multifamily but also in being a landlord. And it has been that for sure. It has been wonderful. It has been great. I have two awesome tenants. I can't stress enough how, especially in a city like Los Angeles that is very pro tenant, it's very, very important to pick the right tenants.
Have quality tenants, definitely. I've gotten sued a number of times. And I'm always named on a lawsuit, but some of them are for why am I named on this lawsuit? I didn't even buy this property until 5 years after the incident happened.
Oh,
so
wow.
There are firms out there, law firms that will just find anything to throw at you and try to get a settlement. So it's a little bit of a pain, but knock on wood, I've never had, I just send it to my insurance and never hear again. They handle it.
Oh, that's excellent. That's great. Yeah, that's good. Right. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
But we're in a litigious state, and the laws expose, I think, landlords to a little more than other states do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because obviously there's a housing shortage housing crisis here in California. And I always feel like, now that I'm sort of on the other side of I'm a business owner and I also invested in the community. I now see the other side of, I understand being pro tenant, and I understand that side of the argument. And I certainly was a tenant for a very long time. So I benefited off of it. But once you're on the other side as I guess I'd be called a mom and pop landlord, you start to realize that perhaps there should be some different rules for companies like a BlackRock who own a giant 400 door unit in downtown LA or whatever, and mom and pop, people who are just trying to find a good way to move into retirement. And so anyway, your question was, how's it been? It's been great. It's been really, really good on the whole. There have been a couple incidents we just had in LA. Of course, the year that I buy, we have the rainiest winter
Right.
of all time. And I knew, the way my building is set up is a triplex, but it's three separate units. So it's basically three separate bungalows or small houses.
Okay,
So
sure.
they're detached. But when I bought, like you said, I play drums and everything. So I'm like, and I like to have music on all the time. And so I'm like, this would be perfect. No shared walls, and I won't bug my neighbors, my tenants. And for sure, that is a huge plus. But I didn't take into account that when they're separate, it's three separate roofs, it's three separate plumbing systems. It's three separate. So if something, I didn't even think about that, but so I guess that's just part of the education. So I've been telling this story to a lot of people because people ask how it's going. And this is just kind of a fun, entertaining story. It wasn't fun in the moment. It was very, very stressful. And I still have anxiety dreams about it. But I went out for drinks one night and in the neighborhood, and I left my phone in my apartment, my house. And I said, because I'm going to be present, go out, have some drinks, be really present, and then come back home. And I'm sitting at the bar without my phone. And, I'm about halfway through my second drink, and I noticed that it's just pouring outside. In the inspection report for this place, I had heard that you want to replace the middle roof. And so I finished my, third drink and everything. And then I head back to my place and I'm feeling good and everything. And it's raining, of course. But I'm like, I had 3 drinks and I come back and I check my phone and it's my middle tenant texting me the SOS emoji, photo of rain, pouring into her bedroom. So I had to get on the roof, put a ladder up against the middle unit after having had 3 drinks. And I brought like a broom up there and I had to sort of, shovel water
Totally
into the downspout. And it was pouring rain. I'm shoveling this water. I'm going, what am I doing? What did I get myself into? I'm like, why did I listen to Mark? What am I doing? And of course it was horrible. And it was really horrible for about 2 weeks, but luckily
with all that rain.
Yeah. And luckily my tenant was very gracious about it. And I was, I had planned 2 weeks prior, actually I had a roofer out there. So I had already scheduled to have a new roof put on, but there's a lot of bureaucracy here in permitting and all that stuff. You need a permit for absolutely everything out here in California. And so I would have had a brand new roof on there and this wouldn't have happened, but I had to wait for the inspector to come and look at it for 3 seconds. Yeah. And they come and they just look at it for like 5 seconds and then they go, yeah, here's your permit. And so it's basically just like a way for the city to make money. But yeah, that didn't happen. And so I had to wait, I think 3 weeks before a new roof got put on. But eventually a new roof did get put on and I took care of it, which was good. And I had the means and the funds to take care of it. But it did sort of, illuminate for me the treachery sort of that can be involved in getting in over your head and not putting away money every month for cap costs and all those things. And yeah, you can really have the rug sort of pulled from out, underneath you if you haven't done your due diligence and if you don't have the money being put away every month for those kind of things.
Definitely. I think a lot of investors are learning that now. That's always the case. And, I wanted to show you, I don't know if you could still hear me, but
yeah,
here, I'll show you as you're talking about that thing. I think, there's probably 300,000 people in LA when it's pouring out that are doing exactly what you're doing. This is, you can't see could you see do you see the house back there?
Yeah.
You see the tarp?
Oh my God, there's a tarp on there. That's amazing.
That was put up at like 3 a.m.
Oh no.
As always, and it's like the 9th time that it's always in the middle of the night.
Yes.
Every house that I've had, this is my 3rd house.
Yeah.
Has a deck. Like they always build a tile deck upstairs on the 2nd floor and it never works. Like it's always porous because you don't really need waterproofing in LA. So it's never a priority.
Right.
So your downstairs room is like dripping water onto the floor. And
Oh yeah, like I have windows here and I want to say they weren't installed correctly, but they were just installed like the way that they've always been installed out here. It's not like the East Coast, but there's no flashing around the windows. And so, I have to get somebody out here at some point in time and like take the windows out, flash around them, and then put them back in.
Right.
But of course, that's money, that costs money. So
yeah, you're definitely, when you get into owning real estate, it's a choice. Like you're not a passive investor
no,
at all. When things go down, you got to handle it.
yeah.
And, there's a passive route, but, I think the owning route, if you could stomach it and you can go with it and maybe eventually get like a team, maybe the first person you get some money, like, have like an assistant or have somebody that could sort of handle those emergencies and take a little bit off your plate because it can get overwhelming. Totally. And I think to your other point is I've often sort of commented to people, I started investing in 98 and, the Great Recession is this like legendary sort of downturn, like the Great Depression. But I think it's harder in a lot of ways. It's harder now because during the Great Recession, the Fed acted in the exact opposite way. They lowered interest rates and everybody had the ability to like borrow. You could borrow like if you were getting squeezed with cash. If you had decent credit, you could borrow or refi and all that stuff. And now, that's all kind of prohibited. Oh, it's prohibitive now based on how high interest rates are.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that they did that. Yeah. And I don't want to pretend that I know, economics or anything like that, but that is interesting that they went the opposite direction than what we're doing now.
And that's partially because, with all the COVID stimulus.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Triggered inflation and just inflation. And, I'm by far not an expert on this, but, high inflation is really damaging to a lot of aspects of the economy. And it's a trade-off that they made that trade that, will cause the damage that might be done by high interest rates in order to avoid the damage that'll be done by high inflation.
I see. Okay.
If that makes sense.
So sure. Yeah. That's what I've been hearing too, is that exact thing that you just talked about. Yeah. But again, I'm so lost when it comes to economics and I know very little about it, but I do know that, in a very basic sense, you need to have a good savings, for things that go wrong, because things do go wrong. And especially my building is 100 years old. So, it's definitely old. And I put money into this place for sure, which is great because, it force a little equity into it. But yeah, you just don't want to be caught off guard.
Right. You got to budget. You got to be prepared so you don't get blindsided.
Yeah. But it's been great. I mean, it's house hacking and it's been, I think you just have to look at it from the right perspective, and the wrong perspective is going on Redfin every week and seeing what the value of your home is, and sort of taking like the long saying, this is a long game and this is not, this isn't a get rich quick kind of a thing. This is, this is a long play. And that's just how it is. So paying attention to, it went up, how much did it go up this month, or how much did the value go down, this month, is kind of useless because I'm not going to sell right now anyway. So why am I even sort of checking that?
Paying attention to that.
Yeah. But the thing is, I guess you can get distracted on this journey by, $1,200 here to fix this, and you got to do this, and then you're up on a roof at midnight, and then you check Redfin. It's like, it's worth less, or and all of that. You have to just remind yourself of the big picture, of why, at least I do, why I got into this, and in that it one day will pay off, because like you said, like you always say, real estate is a very safe bet, long term.
Yeah. And there's things I remember when I had my first duplex, and, you got to play the mental game of it as well. And that is, my experience when I started, like, my tenant, who was Mike Henry at the time, like his dishwasher broke. And I would be like, oh God, what a mistake I made, like investing in real estate. And I'd go over and I'd get a quote, and it's like $280 for a new dishwasher. And I would whine about I would be stewing over that. But I was oblivious to the fact that, oh yeah, my mortgage was on auto pay and I was paying down the mortgage by, $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
Also, I was getting depreciation benefit. And at that time, the market goes up and down, but goes up more than down over the long term.
Right.
I think at some point after the first 4 years, I realized that I was, and when I did the math after I sold it, like my property was going up in value about like $6,000 a month every month
Wow.
that I owned it. And I was like,
Wow.
oh. And then, the property I bought for $435,000, I sold for $1.27 million.
Yeah. Oh, I always quote that when people ask me about it. I say, oh yeah, Mark, bought it for this and then sold it for this. And
Yeah.
that's such a,
And part of that was taking on a 1920s, building that had, it needed value add.
yeah.
And, it was not always fun doing that, but, I was like, I can't believe this after it happened. And I got lucky as well. I mean, the timing turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah. The timing was great. And obviously this place was older and everything, but I just saw the potential I'm up in the hills here in Echo Park and I had beautiful, tons of natural light and I've got great views of like almost 360 of all of LA. And I could see Century City from my living room and downtown from the other window. It's just really, really nice. And the other units, but when I bought the place, the units they looked like 80-year-old woman lived here. The kitchen was all linoleum tile and they were like old ranges that were really nice and classic looking, but they didn't function right. And so I came in and with my contractor and told him what I wanted to do and he did it. And we spent about a month or two renovating the units. And I wanted to make sure also because it was in the middle of COVID and there was a moratorium on raising rent.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
You're caught in all that.
Yeah. So it was also, that was indefinite and it kept on getting extended, the moratorium. And I said, well, I got to be careful. I want to renovate these units and then put them on the market. And it was really important for me to make sure I renovated them right so I could get the max amount of, and I was like, not only the max for now, but if this moratorium lasts 5 years from now, I have to ask for that price now. Like, I have to ask like for the almost like market rent of the future, and,
Right.
And that was difficult to find out because when I listed,
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I listed these, I thought it was crazy. I mean, I listed, I have 1 bedroom, 1 baths basically, and they were much more expensive than anything in Echo Park.
Did you, just for the audience? Yeah. In LA, what do we have here? We have a rent freeze. And this was in the wake of COVID, but they froze rent where you can't raise it. And it's now going on like 2.5 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
And also, secondly, an eviction moratorium. So you can't raise it. And then the legislative environment is not really great for real estate investors right now in LA. They just imposed that they call it a mansion tax that they'll, if you sell any property, and that's what's frustrating about it is like apartment buildings can have 20 units and but any residential dwelling that is sold for over $5 million gets like a 4% mansion tax.
A lot of money.
But however, I think it may have gotten struck down. I don't know. It's still sort of being challenged.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And then I did a little reading on it. And we have a housing shortage, obviously, and a homelessness crisis going on. And I always feel like words tend to get, I'm noticing, and I'm biased. I'm a landlord, I admit it. But it's also like, I feel like we can kind of be used as scapegoats.
Oh, totally.
And when you say landlords, it's all one group. And that's my main issue with like a law like that is there's no shades of gray. You're either the part of the greedy landlords or you're, a renter. And when in reality, you have giant companies who, own hundreds and hundreds of doors here in Los Angeles. And then you have, like I said before, mom and pops who I just don't feel should be subject to the same rules as a giant corporation.
And there are massive numbers of just mom and pop owners. There's
Yeah.
so many, my handyman has a rental place, and, so many immigrants that come to the United States come to LA, and a lot of them, get into real estate because it's a simple, understandable business. And,
Yeah.
it's not all, I think there's other cities that are more sort of owned by hedge funds and stuff. I think LA has tons of mom and pop landlords that just
Gotcha.
have a job, and this is what they're doing to try to survive and save for their future.
Yeah. I mean, it's been politicized too. They use it, politicians use it as a way to sort of, and there are bad landlords out there. There are people like there are, slumlords, and there are landlords that are terrible, and they should be subject to, being held responsible for that stuff. But yeah, the across the board sort of demonization of landlords, I think, is a bit unfair. And I think it's unfair to demonize any group of anyone, across the board. And so that's been frustrating. There was not to turn this completely into like a politics episode or anything, but there was after I bought it, and it was the thing that kind of made me realize that I wouldn't buy in Los Angeles again, or California, but specifically Los Angeles. But there was a bill introduced to one of the city council members, just a bill that would make credit checks and criminal checks on possible
right. I saw that.
Illegal. And then two of the other city council members like signed off on it. And it was like, what? I was like,
yeah.
I'm a very socially liberal, kind of a person.
Right.
I consider myself a liberal person, but I was like, this is nuts. I'm like, this puts, not only my business in jeopardy, but like I live here, and then it puts also my tenants at risk, that we can't, don't know who you're giving it. Yeah.
Right.
So
it's a little bit overboard. It feels like
it does. So, but I guess, when I was listening and doing my homework on all this, and I would listen to a lot of interviews with you, and I remember one of the questions that almost every host would ask is, they were shocked that you still invested in California. And you'd always sort of be like, it's, and I was like, yeah, it is great out here, like when it works out. But I have noticed, I think we talked in the office too, now that we're back in the office at Family Guy, but I remember mentioning to you and had a hesitancy about buying here again. And, because I had mentioned it and you said, yeah, I would probably tend to look more out of state at this point, just because of how restrictive it can be.
Right. And I always defended LA. Like, people ask me that since I started back in 99, 98. And I always said, it's fine. Like, LA is fine there. If you understand the rules, you can still operate. And there was a fairness about it that, like, yeah, it's challenging and it's expensive and all that stuff. But, rent control, does what it does. But when the unit turns, you can bump it up. I mean, you're restricted on how much you could raise, but it's a strong market and there's a lot of demand and it can work, you just work it. However, I said that, for a good 20 years. And, but yeah, I think ever since COVID, there's just been a wave of legislation that I'm looking at. I'm like, come on, like, how is that fair? Like, we have no representation, and I don't want to whine about it.
I don't either. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And also just I think I've heard you talk about it, but like, whatever, all we're doing is whining about it.
I know, all we're doing
LA
is
city
complaining.
politics, forget it. But anyway,
right.
But just make it more advantageous for people to want to invest here, so.
Yeah, it doesn't help if everybody wants to go out of state. If everybody wants to leave, nobody wants to build here.
Right.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. It's it goes in cycles, ebbs and flows.
Right.
And so that's I guess you got into the owner side, I guess real estate. And do you invest passively at all?
I don't, that's my next move. Is I have to save up a little more, but I'm probably going to end up, and we didn't discuss this prior or anything, but I'm probably going to invest in quantum,
Oh, cool.
Because I was thinking, my next move when I bought this place, I'd love to buy, another multi here in LA, but given the climate and everything like we talked about, I think it'd be less stressful and to be a little bit more passive. Yeah.
It's nice having a mix. Like, if you're an active real estate investor, especially like in a city like LA or in California.
Yeah.
I like having just like what I call lines of income. They're just on a spreadsheet. It's like, okay, here's these like 6 properties and they're all kicking off income and I have to do 0.
Yes.
You just get a K1 every year
Yeah.
and you could participate in other markets.
Totally.
That it's good kind of having both. I like having active real estate that I own
Mhm.
and, that I could pass on to my kids
Yeah.
with like a long-term plan,
Yeah.
family plan. But it's, I love the aspect of like getting to participate in other good markets, Denver, some of the
Yeah.
tech markets, the Southeast, and never have to do anything.
Yes.
Just put some money towards it. And hopefully, if you pick the right spot, it'll grow. You could find one of those growth markets.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys seem to be really good at finding those, because I remember you guys were in Austin, sort of, I guess Austin's been hot for a while, but I remember you got in there pretty somewhat early,
Yeah.
And that was right before everyone sort of from California, well, not everyone, but a large portion of people from out of state moved there.
Oh,
So
right, right.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, overall, it's been great. And I'm very happy to, to be reaping the benefits of house hacking and I just realized, no matter, nothing is free, so it's like, it's not going to be some dreamy ride, you don't get like all the equity and the benefits of having, most of your mortgage paid without a little sweat.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, like when I owned that first duplex that I did, I thought on so many occasions, I thought, oh man, why did I do this?
Yeah.
What a mistake. What
Yes.
a
Yes.
mistake. Why am I up on this deck trying to stop
Yes.
it from leaking?
Totally.
And then I sold it and I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, that's why I did it.
That's why you did it. That's
That's
all I keep
why I
thinking
did this.
about. Yeah, that's why I keep thinking about. I'm like, when things suck or whatever, and it's like,
Right.
oh, you're out at dinner, right, with friends, and then you get a text from like one of your tenants or something, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
and it's been very rarely like an emergency.
Right.
There's only been 2 real emergencies. One was like a toilet, kind of backed up, in in the bonus room, and then the roof was the other one, but I had known to replace that roof. I had been told, and I didn't do it.
But you took the gamble, or
I took the gamble. And so now I'm learning like, oh, roof, sewer, plumbing, like those you fix, foundation, you take care of all that stuff,
yeah,
the big stuff.
You know what I got to say, if I could give you advice, I had a guy, I met a guy and he was like a neighbor in my first duplex and I knew nothing. Like, so I just bought this property. Junan sold it to me.
Yeah.
And she kind of coached me and I got the property and I thought I way overpaid and I thought it was a big mistake. But the building next door was a guy named Lal, and I haven't seen Lal in so long, but he was awesome. He was the funniest guy. He was, from Trinidad, and we became friends, and he fixed everything. Like,
wow,
he was my savior. Like, we ended up like going whitewater rafting together, and
oh, that's awesome.
we were buddies. But he was just a handyman who knew how to fix everything, and he, wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't like, it wasn't expensive. He just knew a lot and kind of didn't want to work for a company. He was just like this free spirited guy. And he fixed everything. And I guess not everything was fixed the 100% right way, but he got me through.
Right.
You got to find that, like, you need someone to lean on.
Yeah.
When you're in a crisis mode.
Yeah.
I could try to help you find that, but you got to have somebody to lean on.
That would be great. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. There is one guy who, because I've been using, like, just for small things, I've been using that app, TaskRabbit. And I found a good handyman through TaskRabbit, and he's been great, and he's done a lot of good work and stuff. But yeah, no, I need this sort of, break glass in case of emergency, kind of guy to be like, hey, I have something going on with the roof, and there's water coming in, so, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah.
And you need somebody who, when it's, 12:30 at night and 4 other people are calling them, you need to find the guy that's going to respond to you.
Yes.
You got to have a good relationship. So, you're not You're not the last one that they
Yeah.
come visit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Get that
Yeah.
support. And are you like you said you're self-managing. Like you could always do that too and pay, 4 or 5%. Maybe it's a little more on the small
Yeah.
property,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I know there's an app out there too that, you give to your tenants and have them download and they can, fire repair requests through the app. But yeah, aside from the roof and like a toilet plumbing issue, they're really, and this is always, it's so funny because every time I say this, something within the next couple days big happens. So I don't even want to say it, but things have been going smoothly for the most part and hopefully continue to do that. But yeah, I don't want to paint it out as like this nightmare, but I want to sort of give a realistic, a realistic assessment of
yeah, being a
of
new
what it's
landlord.
like. Yeah, because I think in a lot of these
Totally.
real estate podcasts, you only hear the good
The
and
cheerleading.
yeah, the cheerleading and what a great way in the Burr strategy. It's you just do this and follow the Burr and it's like, yeah, there's a lot that could go wrong and you got to make sure you're doing it right. And you want to paint a realistic picture for people who are maybe thinking about getting into it. But I do think that if you do feel like you have what it takes to do this, it's like you said, you look back after you sell and you go, God, that was all those headaches were so worth it. If you think about it, like your headaches, if you had 10 headaches or whatever, they're like $100,000 headaches. Like that's what was like when you do the math back. It's like
Yeah.
that was an $80,000 headache, so I actually made. So yeah, so you just have to kind of keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah. And also the market goes in cycles. And I think we're in a tough cycle right
Yeah.
now, a tough phase of the cycle. And
Yeah.
it's when, like we talked about earlier, it's when liquidity gets really tight. We got multiple forces happening right now where I think there's sort of say this like when there's so much cheerleading because so many people benefit from cheerleading for on behalf of real estate. But when you're in some of those down cycles, it gets challenging. And I think there's a lot of silent screams
Yeah.
on social media. Suddenly there's less of the rah, rah, rah real
Yeah.
estate. It's just a little quieter.
Yeah, totally.
And
For
it's
sure.
probably because some people's loans got pulled or came due and they had no way to pivot. But you got to be conservative when times are good, when things are free flowing,
Right.
still choose conservative leverage,
Yeah.
watch your debt and have reserves and all that stuff. Be
Yeah.
prepared for rainy days.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, literally and metaphorically, be prepared for rainy
Right.
days, like in my situation.
Right.
But I will say, because I think about, I was up on the roof. I'm like, I wish I just bought it. Why didn't I just buy my own house? Like it was just me. And then you think, you know what? It's you own the house and there's a tarp on your roof. It's like stuff
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so no matter what, and it's so important to own as opposed to just, if you can, as opposed to just throwing money away on paying down someone else's mortgage. It's really important to own. It really is such a good idea. But yeah, you just have to. Yeah.
Long term, obviously, a lot of people know this. The tax benefits are
Yeah.
really strong, especially like you and I have W-2 income
Yeah.
that will get offset by depreciation. I don't know if you've got a good CPA. It's a great combo when you've got W-2 income, but you also have real estate. Depreciation is a powerful thing.
Yeah, and I had no idea even what it was. And I kind of asked my business manager what it is because I had like 3 questions sort of to quiz him about
Uh-huh.
about real estate. One of them was depreciation, and I had read about a lot of depreciation, so I wanted to see if he knew, as much as I did. And he spoke for like 15 minutes about depreciation. I'm like, oh, okay, you know all about this. So he kind of schooled me on it. But yeah, that's another thing where I had no idea what even depreciation was because I always thought, doesn't real estate appreciate? And then you go, oh no, it's actually the building breaks down over time, so.
Yeah. And all the little systems, accelerated depreciation and cost segregation. And you get a good CPA, they know all of those things that are legitimate expenses and stuff. You just hand it to your CPA and they'll hopefully do the calculations for you and file so that you get the benefit.
Yeah, for sure. But like you said, these benefits and all this stuff can take a while to sort of see them. Yeah, we live in a society where everything's sort of instant. and we want to see how things did immediately and want likes or whatever on Instagram. And this is it's almost glacial compared to crypto or the stock market. It's like real
Right.
estate moves slowly. It can be a little like, where's the big parade?
And
like,
almost your smartest strategy for owning real estate is to forget about it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it
Seems
really
ironic
is.
that that's the best thing you could do.
It really is. It's to
Is
just forget about it. Yep. Yeah.
operate it. Just, do your thing, show up, put your mortgage on auto pay,
Yeah.
and just live and get a good handyman. You got to find your Lal. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
do.
he's listening to this, but you got to get a guy who's your buddy and you'll
Yeah.
have fun with. We almost, we did whitewater rafting trips and
It's
stuff.
amazing.
Weird escapades.
So wild.
But anything I needed, I'm like, there's some noise coming from my basement. What do I?
Yeah, I know. I even thought about taking like a course. I'm like, there must be a course offered somewhere. Handyman or plumbing, like just a quick kind of take care of something in between the guy who really knows what he's doing, coming and fixing it. But I haven't found anything like that.
Yeah, I would introduce you to Lau, but he disappeared. He was from Trinidad, and I think it's like dad got sick or his mom got sick.
No.
This is literally like 12 years ago.
Yeah, guy who renovated all this guy Gabriel, and he was awesome. And a guy who owns a bunch of restaurants out here, he goes, "This is my secret weapon. He's incredible, and he's really affordable, and he's does great work." And so he renovated all these units. And whenever I would text him or call him, he was my Lao. He was, "I got it, y'all come right." And he would come over, and he was just that. I really liked him. Like, it wasn't just like business. I was like, I really like this guy. And then I remember something happened, and I texted him. I didn't hear back. I texted him again. I didn't hear back. And then I found out him and his wife got divorced, and he moved back to Mexico and didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's no good. So what are you thinking about? You think you'll continue, build on your first investment, or maybe pivot?
At the moment right now, I mean, I think probably I would invest passively. I think if I had to choose right now, that would be my path, to invest more passively. But again, that could change. A few months ago, I was thinking about buying another building in Los Angeles, but it's just given sort of the temperature of the market and
Like we were talking about.
and interest rates shot way up
Right.
and everything. So it's a little bit more of it. It's less sort of advantageous to buy right now as sort of a first time investor. So I would sort of want to lean on someone more seasoned, like your team, who do syndication.
Yeah, you could get exposed to a variety of markets, and there's a lot of benefits to it. And a big one is you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, which is great, because the job at Family Guy is stressful enough. It's a great job, and there's not much to complain about at all.
Yeah. Are we going to go on strike? What's
I don't
happening with
know.
the strike?
That's another thing. Then I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, it was the first I've ever thought about this. One of the banks that I have an account with, he's like, "Hey, you got all this money, kind of sitting there. Why don't I put it into a 12-month thing, and rates are high, so you'll get a good return on it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds great." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, hang on. Let me think about that, because we might be on strike for the next 6 months."
Right.
Gotta check my liquidity.
Yeah, exactly. That's all things to take into consideration.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
It seems like we're going to go on strike. I don't know. We got to go back and look at the emails. You've received the same emails.
And I've probably read as many as you have, which is like zero.
As fast as I can, read them as fast as I can.
Oh yeah, I just read them really quickly. Yeah.
I don't know what any of this means.
No, I don't either. But David Goodman says we're not going to strike. That's what he says. So.
Oh, he does. Okay.
He told Alec, because Alec texted him.
Okay, don't. I hope nobody from the other side listens to this.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, we're still recording. I forgot.
Right.
Edit this out.
Yeah, right.
Or release it after May, whatever, 1st or whatever the strike's supposed to be. But yeah.
Definitely. All right. Let's see.
Cool.
Anything else? What else can we talk about?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through some old notes from other things. But yeah, you kind of went over your obstacles and that stuff. But yeah, what should we talk about? What's your favorite episode of Family Guy of all time?
Oh, wow. I always say it's the bird is the word.
That's the one. And that's I Dream of Jesus.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the episode. Alec wrote that.
Yeah. That's a great episode.
That is a great episode.
Yeah. I love that. I thought that was so funny. Or is this, wait, no, that's called, is it I Dream of Jesus? I know I Dream of, that might be a different one because I think is it called Surfing Bird or no? God, I don't even know the title.
It's such a blur.
It's
And now,
such a
of course,
blur.
like, you're a writer on these things.
And I should
And,
know this.
you love the show. I love the show, but like when I finish an episode,
Yes,
I may
Dream
not
of
ever
Jesus.
watch it again.
Oh yeah, no, totally. No. I Dream of, you're right. You're it. I just Googled it. It's I Dream of Jesus.
I Dream of Jesus.
Yeah, that's just such a funny. I remember watching, I don't think I've ever laughed harder at a Family Guy episode.
And
was
it the dance, the word?
Yeah, and then of course Seth, there was that one where like he was kind of like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like he just where Peter like was trying to hold it in,
whispering into somebody who's sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
So
That was supposed to be a different song, and the band wouldn't give us the rights.
Oh really?
So Surfing Bird was the second choice.
Oh, it's perfect. Good.
Yeah. So much better.
So much better. So good.
So much better. And I think the Trashmen who wrote Surfing Bird may have made hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million off of runs of that.
That's amazing.
That song. So I don't know where they are in their retirement homes. But
yeah.
they got a nice check.
That's amazing. I love that. Do you have a favorite episode?
Oh man, I don't know. Never have been of a sci-fi fan, but when I joined Family Guy, I like animation, love animation. And I really liked pushing the boundaries of animation and doing things that you couldn't do in live action. And so the two that I wrote that were the most fun were Back to the Pilot. It was like an early one when Stewie and Brian go back in time and enter the pilot episode of Family Guy. And they're like peeking through the windows and all that stuff.
Right.
And the other one was the reverse time, when I think that was when Seth was still there and we would talk about like scientific, just physics ideas. And I had sort of stumbled on the idea. I would read about that in certain circumstances, time reverses and moves backwards. And, so I did an episode. The name of the episode, it's Yug Iglimov, because it was reversed Family Guy.
Yeah.
And it was when Stewie and Brian caused time to go in reverse. And we did a whole episode where everything was happening in reverse.
That's so funny. Like people will say, "Hey, I love this or that." I'm like, "What episode's that?" I'm like, "I have no idea what episode that's from," because like some days we work on like 3 scripts in a day, and you don't know what your mind just becomes mush from doing the same thing every day. Basically, it's different, but it's the same, and it all kind of blends into one thing. But yeah, I can't give you episode titles or any of that stuff. I'm just like, I know like my favorite cutaways, and but I have no idea what episode they're in or.
Yeah, right. I can't place a cutaway anymore.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about Family Guy here, I had a call, a friend of mine, like I'm sure you've experienced, like a friend of mine on the East Coast has a neighbor or something who's trying to loves comedy or something. And when I talked to him, and he was asking like, what have you noticed working on the show that long? And one of the things that I noticed is you work with writers long enough, and people think that maybe talent is God-given or whatever, you're just born with it.
Right.
But I watched so many writers go from being terrible on day one.
Yeah.
And then like 3 years later or 4 years later, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
But they become great. And you're like, oh my God, like how did so-and-so get so funny? Like I thought they wouldn't make it. I thought like they weren't going to make the cut because they were terrible.
Yeah.
They were missing the mark.
Yeah.
Or couldn't figure out a joke. And you've gotten better. I've seen you were already great from the beginning, but you watch people evolve and it's really cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks. I relate to that. I relate to like, well, first of all, I was just so scared going into the room, and I'd never written for television before. And of course, Family Guy is like this towering comedy pillar of greatness. And I was like, this is nuts. I got the job off Twitter and I don't even belong here. And the thing is you want to get great. At least for me, I was like, I want to get great so quickly. Like I want like 6 months. I think 6 months I can get great. And it's like, oh no, it takes like years to even get comfortable. It's really wild, but thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And looking back, I could give myself any advice. I'd be like, the voices of the characters, I wish I had those down more. I wish I really studied the voices of the characters more, because to me, in my mind, it's like those are the clear avenues for comedy for characters, is knowing like how Joe would respond to,
Right.
the bar being closed, and as
Yeah,
opposed
yeah.
to how Cleveland would respond to the bar being closed.
Right.
So it's like those would be two different kind of and so
It's
just
like
knowing
it's like mapping their point of view
that's what it is.
into your brain.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
everybody will do it a slightly different route. Like everyone in the writer's room will do it in a slightly different mapping of who Joe is
Yeah.
or who Peter is. And like they always kind of do the familiar ones, but a lot of writers will like have this weird other channel that
That's my favorite.
Peter couldn't funnel or
Totally.
couldn't channel. And it's like, it's so funny
So
when
funny.
when they bring that to the character.
Yeah, I forget when I was in a room, but someone had pitched, maybe it was Steve or someone, but someone had pitched like Quagmire. They were playing a game, and Quagmire was very anal about the rules of the game. And he's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
you can't do, and it's like, here's a guy who had like
Yeah.
the sex guy is
Right,
like suddenly
right.
about like trivia night. He's like, phones down, like that kind of
Right.
stuff.
When
And I'm
he
like,
was
that's such a
sitting,
funny color.
when he was sitting in his chair by the slow down, like
Yes.
yelling at traffic,
Yeah, totally.
just like the old
Yeah.
lady yelling at
Yeah.
cars in the street.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's also like, what a gift to be able to be afforded years to get good. Now that doesn't exist.
Right. You got to
There are
prove
three-
yourself.
Yeah.
And you said you were terrified. My terrifying first job was Letterman. And I walked into that room, that writer's room. It was so intimidating. I think back in the 90s, right in the middle of that late night talk show wars, Letterman, walking into that writer's room, every writer in that room had like 12 Emmys, and they had all gone to Harvard. They had all written for the Harvard Lampoon.
Right.
And I could not open my mouth. It was so intimidating. For a guy, I had never done stand-up. I had no public sort of outgoing way of expressing comedy. I was in my room writing greeting cards for American Greetings or something.
Yeah.
But you got to get your sea legs
You do.
in whatever writer's room you're in.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to get some confidence.
It does. It does take some time. And I guess it's sort of like real estate too, right? You have to be in it for a little bit before, now I wouldn't freak out so much if like,
Right.
it's like everything is kind of fixable, but those first couple moments that are like, not suddenly it's smooth. And then it's like, whoa, wait, the first couple of hiccups, you're like, oh, I'm going to,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing at Family Guy, where it's like you pitch something and it just dies in the room and you're like, that's it, I'm going to be fired. And you drive home.
Right.
You drive home and you just go, well, I made a huge mistake. This is the worst thing that ever. And now it's like, if I pitch something that doesn't get, whatever, it doesn't matter. I pitched a
1,000.
1,000.
You've earned your place in that room, so you're not like on the fence.
Right.
That was my benefit of joining Family Guy like so early. I just moved to LA. It wasn't on the air yet. It was just this 4-minute presentation that I watched, and it was rough. I was like, this show's going nowhere. And I went into the room, and I had come out away from the Letterman room.
Right.
And I'm like, this is not intimidating at all. Like, this is just
Bunch
a
of idiots.
ragtag group of like people. So it was
so
such a
funny.
change of my own sort of stress level. I was like, Letterman was stressful. This new show.
That's awesome.
I was luckily,
Yeah.
it was a gift. I did not feel the intimidation on Family Guy.
On Family Guy.
It
It was so
became-
established.
It became this big thing. which
Yeah.
is cool.
But it's awesome combined with, you've talked about this a lot, but being able to be fortunate enough to have a W-2 along with not just being all in on real estate. It's the diversifying. It's nice to have that income coming in along with being able to sort of dip my toe in real estate.
Right. I think if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing. I think it made a big difference in my life and in my not just financial future, but just your calm and your sort of peace of mind is having those two things going, both Family Guy and real estate.
Yeah.
Kind of complement each other
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
it's a good place to be. And we're on the stable show. We're on one of the most stable shows
Right.
anywhere in entertainment. Like
Right.
a lot of people are in, could be job to job and with
Mhm.
gaps, a
Mhm.
lot of gaps in between.
Yeah. Very fortunate. Yeah.
I don't know what this podcast was. Was this about real estate? Was
I
this
don't
about,
know. What's
was,
funny is I think when you're on a lot of these real estate podcasts, I listen to them because I want to hear about real estate. But it always ends up veering into like the hosts are like, oh, so let's talk about real estate for like 20 minutes. And then it's like, so dude, Family Guy. And like all the real estate guys want to know, you always want to know about the opposite of what you do. Right. So like all the real estate guys want to know about what's Family Guy like. And then all the Family Guy guys are like, tell me about real estate. So I feel like anyone listening to this who obviously has an interest in real estate they're probably curious about how Family Guy works and everything too. So it's every episode can't be, I guess, about a guy who owns 800 units and is talking about, I don't know, NOIs and stuff like that. So maybe it's a nice little break. I don't know, for people listening.
Yeah, right. So I usually end with a question round. I could try to wing this, but maybe we do a Family Guy round.
Sure.
Okay. So start with an easy one. And you mentioned it before. What's your favorite episode?
Favorite episode would be I Dream of Jesus.
I Dream of Jesus.
Yeah. Or the Star Wars episode.
Oh,
and I'm not even a big Star Wars fan, but that's just such a hilarious episode.
Neither was I that huge of a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But I think we poured ourselves into that because we really wanted to make it good. And I think
it's so good.
One of them, other episodes we pour ourselves into and it doesn't end up good. That one turned out really good.
So perfect, start to finish. And it's so many great jokes in
getting the music, having George Lucas give us the score was incredible. Like having that real music there was amazing. Let's see. My favorite episode. That's an easy one. Now these other ones are going to get harder. Do you have a favorite season?
I don't really. I think for me, I like everyone always raves about like the first, like seasons 2 through 4 or 5 or something. I always thought 5 through 8 are really, the show started to get a little mean in a good way. It was actually mean, but I liked it. I always connected with those episodes. Yeah, I would say 5 through 8. There's a lot of episodes in those seasons that I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. Which writer has the best located office?
Oh, good question. I'm going to say the best view or the best location. I'm going to say probably Rich has probably the nicest office.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hands down.
Hands down. That's a really great office. And then I'm going to say Alec probably, I mean, it makes sense. They're our bosses. Our bosses have the best. I will say when I started, I had the worst because I had one of the gag rooms. It was like one of the writers' rooms was also my office. So I'd like, So like after lunch, I just had like people peeking in, being like, "Hey, are you done? Are
we back?
Yeah, we back yet?" It was just very. Yeah,
people eat food in your office.
Yeah, eat food, leave cans of soda, leave bags of chips, all that stuff.
What was your favorite guest star that you met at the office? What was your most?
I mean, it had to have been Adam West.
Adam West.
Yeah, so weird and great.
Yeah. He was such a great guy too.
Great guy.
Just came into the office and was game for anything.
Totally. He was so great. And Mila's been in the office or was in the office recording a lot, and she's super nice and super friendly. Bryan Cranston was great. Yeah. Sam Elliott, of course. Going around talking to everybody. It's so cool when you see people, you see people like that.
Right.
Just go around and talking to people.
What was fun was when we were in not Danny's office, but Carter's office now. And we were in a gag room and Kyrie Irving, and I am from Cleveland, so I knew the Cavs and when Kyrie had just gotten traded, he came in and he was just hanging out and he just sat in the room while we were working.
So cool.
And we were just picking his brain. And I remember Danny was there and he was like, "Hey, so are the feuds in the NBA like real? The players that hate each other and all that?" And Kyrie goes he's like, No, he's like, you know what? He's like, everybody in the NBA is aware of how lucky they are and how this
Wow.
is like a magical time for them.
Wow.
And he's like, no, they're not. Like, we all are friends. We all know how lucky we are.
Wow.
And we're just going for the ride.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was so cool.
That's so cool. That's like us, it's like we're so lucky to be on like
Yeah.
this weird, ship,
Right.
Family Guy. And
Enjoy it.
it's-
Enjoy it while it
you
lasts.
gotta enjoy it. Yep. That's great.
that-
I love that. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Johnny Depp was good. Of course, he ran into some trouble after.
Yeah.
You know who was
unexpected?
unexpectedly nice is on a Saturday morning. I think I had to go to the office to kind of like keep Eminem company because Seth was going to be late.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh man, he's going to like bust my ass.
Yeah.
He's going to be
Yeah.
pissed and, he's going to be angry. And he was nothing like that. Like,
Oh, really?
he was just like, he's like, oh, I'm like so excited to be here. He's like, and I'm like, hey,
Wow.
take a script, like take something. He's like, are you serious? I can do that.
That's so cool.
But yeah, what a fanboy. I didn't expect Eminem to be like a fanboy.
Oh, that's so funny. When he came on TRL, he didn't talk to anyone backstage. He would just
Really?
he stared at the floor and was totally quiet. Yeah. That's
No
so funny.
way.
Yeah, it was the
No
opposite.
way.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Well, cool. This has been fun. This has been
Yeah.
an unconventional sort of, just freeforming
Yeah.
it the whole way. I had no questions.
Yeah, we did it.
We covered
did
a
something.
bunch.
Yeah, totally.
It was good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah. How can people reach out to you?
I'm on Instagram at Damien Fahey if you want to reach out. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
I only really check Instagram now. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I got to get on social media somehow.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're posting more on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the only place my wife showed me how to pick, because I love taking photos. I feel like in some alternate world, I would be a photographer. I would try to be a photographer.
Oh, cool.
But so I post stuff there that
Yeah.
I always feel awkward just posting like, hey, here's my thought on something today.
I know. Yeah.
I could post a picture.
Yeah. Yes. Same here. Like you could just post like, pictures of your family or whatever if you're at the beach. Yeah.
Right.
That's how people can follow me and message me or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. This
Yeah.
was great, as
Thank you, Mark.
always.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for the Wild West Real Estate Show. If you like what we're attempting to do here, please subscribe so we can continue sharing these with you. And if you want to check out our website, it's quantumcapitalinc.com. You'll find podcast episodes as well as multifamily properties we're looking at and how you could potentially participate. Look forward to seeing you guys soon on the Wild West Real Estate Show.